Welcome to Team DataFam Tableau User Group meeting number 18. This tug's a little bit different where we cater for more the presenter rather than the audience. Not being rude at all, but it enables us to get presenters from around the world, meet at different times of the day to suit hopefully everybody. If it doesn't suit you, you're obviously watching this recording on YouTube because that will be online fairly soon as well. So we organise tug meetings around the presenter and when they're available. So there's no set schedule. We're aiming for one meeting per week, but you'll see from the schedule on the Tableau site that sometimes that's not the case. We have more, but that's always good as well. We've got a number of TC25 presentations coming up over the next few months, but today is not a TC25 presentation, which is awesome, and hopefully everyone will learn more about map players today. But if you want to present more or present at this tug, please get in touch. My email is team.datafam@gmail.com. So today we have Lewis presenting Master the Dark Force, map layers, and obviously there's a Star Wars pun in there as well. So I'll hand it over to Lewis. He can run the presentation and we can learn something about map players.
Sounds good. So I was telling Chris earlier on, this year during TC, I went ahead to go to Disneyland and do this. And I'll get every opportunity to show off my lightsaber. Suppose those who don't know, this is a lightsaber that you can make at Disneyland in Anaheim. So if you're going to TC next year, this is something you can consider. Okay, let me just share my screen. Let's see. And there we go. All right. So hi, everyone. Again, welcome to this non-TC session. Today, we're going to talk about map layers. Like Chris said, there's a pun on Star Wars because map layers is something that a lot of folks don't really use. So I kind of deem it as the dark side because traditionally, to kind of work with map layers, you do need to learn to create some additional calculations and nested formulas and stuff like that. But don't worry, this is why we are here today. So just a short intro about myself. I'm Lewis, Tableau Visionary and Ambassadors. I probably should take away the public because since they have kind of renamed and reworked the entire Ambassador program. Other than that, I lead the Singapore Tableau user group. I also co-lead the community project Games Night Viz. I do a podcast as well called Secrets of the Viz, where I interview authors on Tableau Public, and I'm kind of now extending outside of this realm as well. So for Games Night Viz, currently we're running a challenge until the end of July, which is on the 3 kind of retro video game characters, Sonic, Mario, and Zelda. So if you're a fan of either of them, do join us. We have some curated data sets, but as always, if you have anything that you want to bring to the table, feel free and and kind of swing in with your creativity. So we are really excited to see what everyone comes up with. There's also kind of like a new batch system that we rolled out last month. So it's kind of like a nice little present that we can kind of give everyone to show off on LinkedIn. For Secrets of the Viz, if you're not aware of this, it's a podcast that I publish every week. I think to date, I have about 70 episodes, so you can head over to the link there, or you can just search it down YouTube. There is also an audio only version on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if that's your thing, but I would recommend the YouTube one because I do include like kind of screenshots and wireframes and mockups that the authors share with me as well, which is quite interesting. So today's topic, it's going to be a bumpy ride because we are going to be covering quite a bit. What I'll do is I will give you guys kind of like an overview of what map layers is, and then I'll do a live demo. Yeah, I'm putting myself out there doing live. Hopefully I get everything right and we don't fumble, but we'll do behind the scenes for 3 of the business that I did, Chromatics of the Force, 1 in a Million, and Red Hearts. So all 3 of these utilize map layers. It's kind of like my favorite thing in the past couple of months. and then I'll leave you guys with some key takeaways. But as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or you can ask questions at the end of it, or interrupt me if you want. Okay, so what are map layers? So map layers are initially built for maps, hence the name. It was released in 2020.4, and it allows people to do kind of geospatial analysis. So what you could do is that you can stack marks on top of one another in a map. You can add granularity from different data sources without joining them together. So that's kind of like a nice thing to do. Because we know with geospatial data, it's always hard to kind of create that whole kind of like a master data sheet that has everything, because some might have regions, some might have countries, some might have territories, and so on and so forth, and they don't always align with one another. And you can also control the interactivity of each of the different mark layers. So you can, disable highlighting or clicking and stuff like that. So it helps to build the additional, I would say, detail to the map without, screwing up the user experience and all. So here are some examples of what it was initially meant to do. So this is an example from Tiho from Singapore. So she did a map of Singapore, and she had map layers to show the different kind of facilities. You have like the parks, you have the aquatic facility, you have the MRT lines, and the railway. And these are all done with map layers stacking on top of one another. So you have like the cherry blossoms, which represents the trees. I think that's the housing estates. And then you have the tree icon, which represents the park, and so on and so forth. So this is a very, I would say, ideal situation or ideal example of how you would use map layers for what it was intended to do. Another example is something from Maureen Zifa, which is a more interactive way of using map layers. So you can actually, through parameters, hide and show the different things that you want to see on the map. So if you had a little control panel that you can see the locations of the dessert stores, the malls, the beach, salon, and so on and so forth. And as you toggle between each of them, you'll see them popping up on the map. So it's a very interesting viz. The other one is by Lisa Trescott, which she did, I think, last year probably before this year's TC, because I think everyone was excited going back to San Diego, and she created a map that has like all the tourist attractions. So this is still using the same map layers kind of interactivity and all. It's just that she added a lot of visual flair to it. But these are kind of some of the examples that you can possibly do maps. And then people started to reimagine their creativity. So this is one of my favorites by George, and it has listed out all the Star Wars film in the order of the release at the top, and then in the middle, where you have the curved planets, is where you see the chronological order of the films, and you can see all the sigmoid curves going through the different sections. And this entire viz was done in just one sheet. So you can imagine the number of map layers that go behind this viz. I actually have a podcast episode with him where he walked us through the different calculations that he did, the trigonometry involved and stuff like that. So if you're interested, you can also take a look at that in the channel. The other one that I really like is this one by Chris Westlake. So he did it earlier this year to kind of just showcase what he'd done for the past year. So this is also in one entire sheet. So it's really amazing work. So you have a couple of things going on here. You have like the circle charts that kind of show along the timeline what he did, the visits that he did, the blogs that he did, the presentations that he did. He also had additional annotation layers that you can see, family holidays, Tableau conference, and so on and so forth. So the examples that I'm showing you today are what inspired some of my work in the Star Wars viz and also the Soundwave chart. All right, so I'll get into that later on. This is also a new one by Rob Taylor, which is the Lion Spray. I think it's a correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's a football or something, or is it hockey? I can't remember. I'm not a very sports person, you can see. But this visualizes I think it was the Australian team versus the British and Irish team. So you can see all of this is also in one layer. So one sheet itself. So it's really impressive because you have I would say 1, 2, 3 different types of charts in one layer. So you can see the amount of flexibility that you can actually achieve with map layers. I'll show you in a bit. And this one is also one of my favorites because of how much you can actually translate this to a business setting. So I do use some of Sam's tricks in this chart, in this viz for my work, especially when you have a number of different KPIs that you want to show in one sheet itself. So traditionally, if you want to do something like this, you probably have to create multiple sheets and kind of stack them next to one another in a horizontal container or something, right? But the problem with that is that sometimes the alignment doesn't work that well. So building it in a map layer ensures that everything gets aligned exactly where it should be. There's no overlapping of lines. There's no kind of pixel off and stuff like that, right? So these are some of the key examples that would demonstrate to you how map layers could potentially be done. So we'll jump into how do we create this amazing business, right? So if you think about it, Tableau is a canvas of X and Y axis, right? So you have the X on the horizontal axis and Y on the vertical axis. Whereas for maps, they are a canvas of longitude and latitude, right? And because the Earth is round, hopefully there's no flat Earth theories here, but they go in degrees. So you have minus 90 degrees to 90 degrees on the vertical axis, and the minus 180 to 180 on the horizontal axis. But if you project this on a 2D space, it's essentially the same thing, right? So the longitude goes from negative 180 to 180, and the latitude goes on the vertical axis. So it's essentially the same thing. So in terms of map layers, in order for us to plot things on the 2D canvas in Tableau, these are some of the functions that you might use. So you have area, you have buffer, difference, intersection, and so on and so forth. However, a lot of this deals with the actual distance or measurement pertaining to the Earth surface area and stuff like that. But there are two functions within here, which is make point and make line. These are primarily used for building things that are not traditionally maps in nature, right? So if we look back at the previous examples, like by Lisa, by Maureen, and Tiho, they use a couple of different functions within here. You have the distance, you have the length, intersection, and so on and so forth. But to build something like what Rob, Chris, and Josh did, it's mostly make line and make point. Right? You have polygons as well, but mostly those are that. Right. So what I'll do is I'll do a live demo now, going through the 3 different vizzes. So this one I'll leave it for the last one, but this is the chromatics of the force. I'll show you guys how to do the lightsaber glow. I'll also go through a little bit on the animation basics, what are things to look out for, and then I'll also do a demo of the minion viz that I did. So the radio chart was actually done in one sheet itself, right? So I'll go through that, as well as this one, the sound wave chart. So this entire thing was also in one sheet. So you have the annotations, you have the axis, you have the sound wave itself. So I'll go through all 3 of them, starting off with the minion one, right? So in order to create the minion viz, there are a couple of things that we need to do, right? The data set itself is pretty simple, so I can show you over here. All right, so this is basically the main data set. You have the body shape, you have the eye, the hair, the minion type, right? And you have kind of like an ID that associates with each of the minion. We do have a stats of each of the minion, which is joined by the ID. So this will give us the information around what this minion is, where they appeared in, some images, and their name itself, right? There is one data densification that I did over here, and I'll show you how the model looks like. So for the most parts, to create things, to create lines, to create shapes or rectangles, you will need to densify your data, but it's not that complex. So this is, like I said, the main data set with the minion types and everything. These are the stats. These are joined by the minion type. All right, so you have the type is here. Yep. So you have the normal one box. So these are all done in Excel actually, but it's just a combination of all three. You could probably do it in Tableau Prep as well. And then you have the last piece, which is the model, and you can see that the model is just a row of 5 data points, right? So what this does actually, if you look at the join condition, is just a 1-to-1, right? So what you do is that you just edit the calculation, just set it to 1 over here, all right? And because it doesn't have any real connection, this is kind of a pseudo one, it multiplies each of the data by 5 rows, right? So you can imagine that this row has now 5 additional rows, one for 0.1, one for 0.2, one for 0.3, and so on and so forth, right? And this would allow you to create lines because you can actually set, what data appears on 0.1, what data appears on 0.2, and so on and so forth. So let's see. So in order to start, there are a couple of calculations we need to create. So for map layers, what I always like to start with, how do you, okay, there we go, is to create a midpoint of 0, 0. And what this does, it gives us a kind of like a dummy point to start off with, just so we have the map in place. And because we want to disable the map, you can't actually, so for example, if you have let's say this one, and then you disable the map from here. So you go to map, background maps, and click it to none. You can see that now you can actually add more things to this, right? So the dummy allows us to add additional things. So for example, if you drag it and you add a map layer, you have 2 layers now. If you go ahead and switch that off, you can still add additional marks. So this is kind of like a neat trick that I learned from Jessica Moon. So let me just clear everything now. All right, so you have the map dummy, which is just 0.0 point. There are a couple of things that we need to do in order to build that circular radar chart. The first thing, if you are not too familiar, I'll give you a very quick crash course on trigonometry. The first thing you need to do is you need the angle, all right? So how the angle is calculated is we have the ID, right? So the ID goes from like 1 to 200 over, because there's 200 over minions. And what this does is that I take the current minion, all right, ID, and I multiply it by the slice of the pie. So if you think about a circle is 360 degrees, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm dividing that 360 degrees by the number of minions that are going to be appearing, right? So if there's 10 minions appearing, this will be 360 divided by 10, right? And what I've done is now I have this as the individual slice size. I need to multiply by the minion ID. So if it's the third minion ID, that will be 3 times 10, which is 30 degrees. So they will be the third position in the circle itself. So this is the angle that you first need to create. And then for angle, what you need to do is that you need to create a radians, and this translate this into a the distance from the center as well. And then from this two, you can actually now create the X and Y, right? So the X and Y in trigonometry involves cosine and sine, right? So you have the cosine of the radians that we created, And this is actually just a parameter that I create just so I can play around with the settings. So you can see, let me see. How can I? Why can't I right click on this? This is very weird. I can right click on this one, but I can't right click on this. Oh, there we go. Right, so this is just a floating value of 4.5, right? So if we just show this up, why is this not showing up? Oh, okay, see, technical error. I should have tested this.
I've seen that bug. What if you drag the parameter menu like thing higher up? You know, you can grab the handle above the parameters so that.
You know what? Let me just try this.
Yeah, there you go.
You can.
That's a dumb thing, but
I've definitely come across that bug recently.
It's just annoying. But anyways, so this is basically just taking the cosine, multiplying by the radius to give us the distance from the center, right? The center being 0, 0, right? And the same thing for y, only that now we're using sine instead of cosine, all right? So with this two, we have the x and y coordinate, and we can go ahead and create the map point for the median. So here, this might look a bit confusing, but let me just break it down for you. So the make point takes two variables, the x and y, right? And what I have here is I'm utilizing the data densification of the point. So if you remember, we had this model with 1 to 5 points, right? So I'm just telling them that if the point is 1, then I want to take the median x. Sorry, this should be x, and this should be y. I don't know why I named that the other way around. But this would be x when the point is 1. And when the point is 2, then it goes to 0. So this allows the map layers to draw a line from the outer circle to the middle part, right, which is how we create the radial chart itself. The same thing for y-axis. So we use the y for the 0.1 and 0 for 0.2, right? And now, if we drag this, we need to drag the dummy first, and then we drag the median, right? You can see that everything now appears around. It doesn't look right yet because we don't have any filters in place, but you can see how this would allow you to see the radial chart for start, right? So let me just go ahead and name this as dummy so that and you can actually hide this, right? So the user doesn't see this. Can do this, can do a opacity 0 as well. Now for this one, this is the median node itself, right? Okay, we can then now add the median ID over to the detail, right? We change this to a let's see, a circle, right? And then we can add the points, which is this one, to the detail as well, right? So you have like all of these individual median IDs, okay? There was one more parameter that I created, which is basically a toggle of the median types, because there are different types like, you know, tall, short, normal size, and so on and so forth. What I also did was that we needed to add that into the filter. So you have the median type, which is essentially equals to this one. And what I did was just have this point to the same action that the parameter is selecting. So you can just type, you know, median type ID equals to the toggle of the median type, right? So this would give you just one value in total. So if you select through, you can see that now the radial actually changes. Yeah, there you go, right? Based on like the different median types, right? What we could do from here is beautify it. So obviously this is not the final product. what we can do is now we want to duplicate the minion node and have, we want to duplicate the dummy so that we can add the minion type right in the middle, right? So we can do this, we can do selected minion type, selected type, actually. All right, we change this to a shape. I already have the shapes in place. I can now drag this to shape. Wait, not shape. I think it was type. Add all members, right? And then I can increase the size a little bit, right? So you have the minions. If you toggle through the different one, you see the different minions. So I've already kind of have this in place. So we can show you, right? I have this all as custom shapes in Tableau, right? So this just changes accordingly to it. We can go ahead and add additional flares to it, like, you know, adding a border around it. So for example, I can now add a dummy. Just change it to a circle. I put this as, you know, soups. Just increase the size a little bit. Okay, so this is the yellow border. Okay, I add one more. Put this as the white background. Change this to a circle. White, right? So the layers itself also determine what is the order where the layers are. What? So this selected type should be on top of the white layer, so that now you have this piece like this. And you can disable people from clicking on each of these different functions by just clicking on here and disable selection. So if you click on this, let's say if I disable all three of them, you can see that now I can't actually click on either three of these axes. And that's the intended action. So now we have the minion nodes. I can just go ahead and increase the size a little bit, right? And I don't want to map anymore because now I have multiple layers that I can actually work around. So you can go ahead and remove that, all right? And then you will see that now it appears like this, right? What I also like to do is I want to fix the axis so that it doesn't change. If you notice, like if we switch between the different things, you see that it's no longer in the middle, right? So we want to always keep this in the middle. So I can go ahead and edit the axis. I will just put it to a -6 to 6. The same thing for the y-axis, 6 to 6. Right. So no matter now how I change, the minion always stays in the middle, right? And then now what we can do is that we can add the lines itself, right? So now we can add this as the line. So shift this down so that it appears behind the borders. We want to add a line. We want to add the, let's see, where was it? The minion ID. Sorry, not the minion. Yeah, the minion ID. And then I want to do the lines itself, right? So once you put the line, because there's only 2 points that we are using, the 1 and the 2. So you can look at here, this is actually 0.1, and then this is actually 0.2 right in the middle. So this actually draws that line for you. You can shift this down, you know, play the colors a little bit, right? And then you have something like this, right? So this is how you create that real chart. You can go even further by creating even adding more furnitures to it, like labels. So what I did here is that I have additional calculations here, which is basically another parameter. I like to parameterize most of the options here so that I can play around and make sure that everything is supposed to be where it is. But it's essentially the same thing as the radius one. So I have like a 0.75 padding. If you look at the label, it's essentially the same thing. It's just that I'm adding that additional padding just so I can play around with the settings, right? And the label, it's a bit more straightforward because you don't have to do that 0.1 and 0.2. Now you just 1 point for the X and the Y label. Oops. Right. And if you drag this over here, right, and set this to a circle, put the name on the label. I can drag this to 0, drag this to none, and put this slightly bigger, I would say. Right, and then you have all of the labels in tag, right? And you can actually play around the padding to see what works for you. So if 7.5 doesn't work, I want more padding between each of them. I can set it to 1. I can set it to 2, which will kind of expand this even further. But I think the setting that worked was 0.75, right? So all of these will allow you to create. So it's also flexible, because if you switch between each of the different minion types, you will have the labels aligned properly, right? So this is how effectively it would show up. I mean, there are other things that you can create, like removing the grid lines and changing colors and so forth. But this is, in a nutshell, how you would create a radar chart in one sheet using map layers. Before we move on to the next demo, is there any questions or anyone getting lost? Sounds good. All right. Silence means consent. Okay. Alrighty. So the next one I want to go through is sound wave, right? So for sound waves, it's a bit challenging. I had a lot of iterations with it, because if you think about sound wave, how traditionally we've done a sound wave is that firstly, my sound wave was based on the virality score of all the YouTube videos. So anything that reached 1 billion. And I had ChatGPT tell me how to create a virality score, which is essentially just looking at the number of views that they had, divided by the number of days that they took to get to that milestone. And this was all done already in Excel. So if you look at the data sheet, is even more simpler. So you have over here the number of months it took to reach 1 billion. All right. If we take a look at the data set itself, right, it's the same thing. So you have the full data set here, and then a model, which is essentially the same one that you would see in the minion one. So it's a 1 to 5 join on a 1-to-1 join condition. And then I have, where is it? This one, which is basically just converting the publish date and the milestone date to a days, because I wanted to use days as a more granular measure. The one that I had in my Excel file was months, so I wanted to convert that to days, but it's actually the same thing. So you have this calculation that divides the kind of normalizing the number of days it took to reach 1 billion views, and also to reach the number of likes, and this kind of formed the virality score. And for some wave chart, you will need to create kind of like you think about it, it's basically a pyramid chart that is on top and below, because the center line is where the line grows from, right? So what I needed to do is just divide the score by 2, right? So that we not overstretch the numbers. And then the bottom is basically the same thing. It's just that it's in a negative, right? And for sound wave chart, how you do is you would drag the measure values over, and then you kind of choose to only have the top and the bottom, right? Change this to a line, right? So you have like one line now. We need to add the song title, which is, where is the song title? The song title is here, right? So it's essentially I just concatenate the title and the artist, because there may be chance where there'll be similar titles by different artists. So just to make sure that we have every unique combination, right? So you drag this to detail, and let's see, what else do we need? We need the index as well, right? So this index would allow you to compute by the song title, right? And then now you have traditionally what you see as a sound wave, right? You can see that the sound wave doesn't look right, because it's going kind of like a hard wave, like you would see in the ECG chart. So the other thing you need to do is to make sure that you drag the measure names into the path, so that it goes from one to another. So the top one is the sound wave top, and then the bottom measure value is the sound wave bottom, and this just merges it together. So this is traditionally how you would create a sound wave chart. But if you look at, let me just show you how it looks like. Right, this is the one chart thingy. You can see that there are a lot of furnitures here that we can't add, like additional shape, the axis, the annotation and stuff like that. So in order for us to do that, I realized I can't do this in the traditional way. So I needed to do this in a map layer instead. So first thing first, the same thing, we need to have the dummy. All right, we have the dummy that we created earlier on. We just drag this across. And then now we need to normalize the value. So you can think of, if we go back to our Google Slides, right? The longitude and the latitude goes from like 90 and 180. So obviously, if let's say if you are trying to visualize sales, right? Sales might go in millions, billions, so you can't visualize within the range of the axes. So you need to kind of normalize it so it goes from within this axis. And usually what we do is that we just divide the actual value by the maximum value so that it goes from like 0 to 1, right? So over here, the variety score normalization is just the score itself divided by the maximum by each of the song type, right? And this would give us a value from 0 to 1. So now we can actually put this on the axis itself. The next thing we can do is the sound wave, right? So the sound wave is similarly to the minions one, we are using the point system to say that if it's 1, then I will take the variety score, which is the normalized one, and then if it's 2, I'll take the negative one. So it's the same theory as how you do it normally. And then the x-axis, the same thing. I'm just dividing it across the x-axis, right? So I'm taking the song index dividing by the maximum, so it goes from like 0 to 1 as well. And this creates that index for them from left to right. So if we drop this over here and I add the song index, right? So this is the sound wave, right? This is the dummy. We don't have to change that. We can add the point. Where is the point? We need to change this to a line, point to the path, right? You can see that immediately you can see the sound wave chart. The only thing is why it appears so weird is because the full map is being shown still. So you have this 180 to 100, minus 180 to 180. So what you need to do is let's disable it first, right? And then you can see that now the sound wave looks a bit normal because it now compresses to the range of the values in the data set itself that's being shown, right? We did have a color that I created, which is basically the 4 different songs that I wanted to highlight. It's just a grouping of the song title, nothing fancy, right? So you have APT over here, you have Despacito over here, and so on and so forth, right? The other thing you can add from here is that I wanted to show which are the songs that are fast growing, right? That means they took less than 4 months to get to 1 billion, right? And to do that, I actually created the, one more additional if statement on top of the sound wave chart. So this just takes into consideration if the month is less than 4, then I return this. If not, it return a null value which is not visualized on the chart. But essentially, all of it is the same thing. I added a little bit of padding. I should have put this in a parameter, but it was a very small thing. So what this does, it allows me to just plot it just right outside of the line so that I give it a bit more space. So if I put this over here, change this to a shape, song index detail, at the point, sorry, so the path, colors to shape. Actually, we can change the color over here, change the shape. We can change this to a diamond example. So and point as well, right? And then you have this to be right. So now you have all the songs that have that took less than 4 months, 4 months or less to get to 1 billion, right? And you can also disable this, right? So now you have actually two things that the user can actually click on. They can either click on the line itself, or they can click on this one. So if you don't want them to click on this is fast growers, right? You can actually do the same thing, disable clicking. So now they can't click on this, but they can click on the line itself, right? So this is how you create. The other thing I wanted to add was the axis line, right? Because now I don't have the axis to show the years itself, right? So I could possibly put everything in a different sheet and have it stacked in a vertical container, but I wanted to do everything in one chart so that it scales properly as well. So the first thing you need to do is to make sure that you fix the axis as well. So what I've done is that I set this to 0.15 and 1.15, just so I can put this with a little bit of spacing on the left and right. And then this one, I did it a 3 and a -4, and I'll get to that, why I did that. Oops, this should be -4 to 3. Yeah, okay. So you can see that here there's slightly a bit more space at the top, at the bottom than the top. And what I wanted to do was to create an axis. So how do I create an axis? The first thing is that I know the number of songs in my data set is from 1 to 201, which is the song index. So what I've done here is that I'm just taking, if the song index equals to 1 or 201, which is the first and the last point, then I plot a -1.4 on the y-axis. And then for the x-axis, basically, I'm trying to draw a line from the left to the right. So what I'm doing is I'm using the data densification data set. And if it's 1, then I put it at 0, which is on the x-axis. And if it's 2, I put it to 1. So with this, you can drag this over. This is the axis line. Right, you can go ahead and change this to a line. You can add this point to path, and straight away you can see one line as the axis over here, right? But this is not the final thing, because it's just a line, it doesn't have any labels or whatnot. So you can go ahead and create a new one. So what I've done is I've created one more, which is essentially the same thing. And the x-axis is using the same thing as same formula as the one that we did for the sound wave. So it creates an index of each of the song on the x-axis. And over here, I'm just putting out the notes for the years that I want to highlight. So you have the first and the last point, and all of these 4 is actually where these songs are. So your APT, Despacito, Gangnam Style, and Hello, right? And then if I drag this across, I change this to a shape, I can now drag the publish date year, right? And you can see if I've already set the shapes itself, but you can see that you can actually set all of this to the shapes that you want, right? So you have this one, because I wanted the first and the last point to be, because this is just a snapshot of time in period, right? So there are years before 2007, there are years after 2024 as well. And then this one, you can actually put it to label, and then just kind of format it a little bit, right? And then you have something like that, right? There are still points that we can add. So this is just building on top of what we have built. So this is the same thing. It's just that now I'm highlighting additional years, just so I can add like mini plots on the line itself. So if I put it over here, I do the same thing, which is the publish year. Change this to a shape. I can actually put this as a support. Yeah. And then now we have this different points. So this is 2011, 2012, 2014, 2015, right? Because the number of songs for each year is different, but I wanted people to have an idea of where each of the years starts and ends. And from here, basically, there's a lot of things you can do. You can add annotation layers. You can just create and add marks like, oh, this is an annotation of something, and basically format everything as you like. and you will appear. I mean, this is the, sorry, not this one. This is the final product, all right, which is essentially the same thing because these are just annotation boxes, right? But you have the main pillars, which is all of this, the sound wave and the axis itself, and all of these are just annotation. So this is essentially how you would create a sound wave in one chart, right? Any questions before we move on, because it's quite a lot of things that we covered.
Yeah, Andy had a question.
Mm-hmm.
If I can just get to the Q&A, which was sort of my question as well. In your data sources, you've got a table called model,
Mm-hmm.
and he was asking why is it 1 to 5 when you only seem to be using 1 and 2.
I mean, I put 1 to 5 because I was experimenting to see if I needed more than 2 points, but you can just have it as 1 point, 1 and 2 if you just are if you're just drawing a line. The 1 to 5 is a trick that I learned from Sam Parsons. He had a whole block series of map layers, and the 1 to 5 point is for him to create a bar chart, right? So you can imagine a bar chart going from, let's see if I can. Let me just open up my Figma and can. Whoops. Can I?
It's almost like the different points in the polygon.
Yes. So you can imagine like this, right? So point 1 will be here. Let's change this, right? And then point 2 will be here. Point 3 will be here. And point 4 will be here, right? But you will still need one more line, one more point to be back at the 0 point so that it draws the line like this. So imagine this would draw 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And if you don't have a 5 point, that is the original one, it basically just draw a sideline U shape instead. It doesn't close the loop. So you need 5 points in order for them to close the loop to draw a rectangle.
Yep, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. There was a lot of other chat, but I think that was like the main question out of that section.
Yeah, I just saw Andy's
desktop icons.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Yeah, I get that a lot. I've been meaning to clear my desktop for a while, but I just didn't have time. But I'll get to that. Cool. So I think we have reached the final part. I think a lot of you are looking forward to this on how to create the animations for the lightsaber one. And there's a couple of things. So essentially for the Star Wars Fizz, you know what? Let me just open up the Fizz to show you guys. The couple of things, right? So you can see that there's this slider over here that allows you to change the Kyber crystals. For those who are not Star Wars fans, Kyber crystals is what powers the lightsaber. And you can actually click on this and it flips from one crystal to another. And this is kind of like a infinite scrolling that I tried to do, because if you see here, we start with green, blue, white, red, and so on and so forth. If you click on purple, the green actually slides over to the right, and everything slides to the left again. And if you go down one more, it does the same thing, right? And how I actually did that was not too overly complex. If we take a look at the data set, all right, so it's just 3 things. So the Kyber details are where all the Kyber crystals are. So you can see yellow, green, blue, white, red, purple, black, right? And then I repeated the data in the data set itself. So you have actually 2 sets of the data in one data set, right? Just so that I can pan it across the x-axis and create a illusion of an infinite scrolling action, right? And I do have the IDs, just so the original IDs is so that I can plot them on the x-axis, and the adjusted one that actually just shows, yellow is 1, green is 2, and so on and so forth, right? And then all these are just additional information about the kyber crystals. I did have another data set that has the owners of each of the kyber crystals. So this is joined by the kyber color, right? So this will give you like the owners for each of the colors. Nothing fancy over here. And then I also have the data identification. This one I had only 1 to 4, but it's essentially the same thing. So it's still joined on a 1-to-1 basis. So having said that, how I created that scrolling action is firstly, again, we need to create that dummy so that we have that. We have the kyber. Okay, wait, before I go to the kyber, there's a couple of things I need to show you. The first thing is this one, which is the selector of the crystal. So you have 1 to 7, which is essentially the colors. I just use numbers so it's easier. And I think one tip that I will show also, if you are working with parameters and calculated fields, Tableau seems to process numbers and booleans a lot faster than strings. So I could possibly have used the kyber color instead, right? But I think there is additional processing when it comes to text as opposed to numbers and booleans, which is why I've used numbers instead. But that's that. So with this selector, right, what I needed to do is I needed to create a updated position. So if you think about, let me just clear this first. If you think about the X position and the Y position and the kyber ID, right, all of it is we have 14 items over here, which is basically 7 times 2. And it just plot across the x-axis. But in order for me to shift the kyber crystals from one position to another, I need to ask Tableau to recalculate it so that it triggers the animation. The animation only works in Tableau if there's a change in calculation, right? So if I could possibly have like 14 different columns to kind of switch it, but that actually creates a lot more work, or rather slows down the entire Tableau in order for them to render the animation properly. I don't know exactly what is a threshold in terms of calculation where Tableau stops animating, but for the most part, try to keep it as simple as possible and in like 1 or 2 calculated fields so that Tableau doesn't stop animating. So instead of creating that 14 different columns, I just created 1 calculated field. And this is, it looks complex, but if you think about it, it's not that confusing. So you have a case statement that checks the lightsaber selector. So when it's 1, meaning that the user has selected the yellow lightsaber, what I do is that I will check the kyber ID, which is the 1 to 14, right? And I want to set the the 8th ID, which is the yellow one. So yellow, blue, green, something, and then yellow, blue, green again, right? So this would be set at 0. The rest of it, you can see that I kind of push it to the left side of the x-axis, right? So you have kind of a somewhat equal distance. This is like in multiples of 0.1. I added a slightly bigger buffer just so that I can have this additional space for the lightsaber. So I needed to push both the left and the right away from the centerpiece, which is why I added like an additional 0.5, right? But this is essentially how you do it, because after the 8th ID, everything gets pushed to the right. So this is 8. If we go down to the second one, which is the green, you can see the same thing, except now the 9th ID, which is the green one, gets pushed 0, and then the rest gets pushed to the left. So this is a long as calculated field, but what it's doing is just rearranging through the different permutations and resetting the x-axis, the x coordinate, right? And then with this, I have the y is pretty straightforward. It's just 0 because we are not moving the Kyber crystal up and down, right? So it stays at 0. So it's fine. We probably don't need to have like a formula or a column for position y because it's just 0. But just for completion's sake. So the Kyber crystal map layer point is very simple. So you have the position y and then the updated position x, right? So now if we take this both away and I add the dummy, I add the Kyber to this, you can see that all of this have over here. You can see that this has a bit more space because this is kind of like a centerpiece. I can go ahead now to remove this, right? And reset the axis. I think it was like -1 to 1. No, probably not 1. 0. What was the maximum value? Let's see. See, I should have rehearsed. Well, actually, -1 to 1. That's right. So this was -1. This should show up correctly. Oh, I know why. Because we haven't set the values itself. Oops. How do I? Okay, there we go. We hide that. We set this to maximum. And what we want to do is that I want to add the ID to the detail. So this would be your Kyber, right? And then I'll set this to a shape, right? And then now you can see all of this happening, right? I can add there the adjusted to the shape itself. Wait, not the shape. To the colors, right? So you have all the different colors. You can change this to the Kyber crystal that we have, which is this one, and just increase the size a little bit, right? And then now, if we go back here with the lightsaber selector and set the animation to be slightly slower, right? You can now see how it shifts from left to right. Right. So this is how I've done it. I've added a little bit of flair to it, just so if you look at this one, there's a little bit of glow that happens behind the lightsaber that's being selected. And this is done using map layers because you can't have like dual axis that does that. It's actually the same thing. So I drag the Kyber to here. I have a calculated field that basically just checks if the lightsaber that I've selected is equals to the lightsaber in the dataset itself. So I can go ahead and just add this to the color, right? And it's just why I've done this is that because you can see that all of this has kind of like a white background behind the crystal, whereas the centerpiece, sorry, the others have a black background behind the crystal. Only the one that is selected has the white background, just so we can create that glowing effect. And then this character field just returns a false when it's not selected and true when it's selected, which is why we have the black and the white thingy. You need to add this to it as well, and you need to change this to a shape and put it as the same shape, which is this one. Right, and then just kind of increase the size a little bit so that it kind of overlaps a little. And then this is the background, and we just shift this right below this. So now you can see that, you know, probably have to play around the settings a little bit. Yeah, there you go. We slightly. Okay, so now if you shift over, you can see that always the one in the middle, this one is out of sight, so it's fine. But you can see that only the one in the middle has that white background. And then we can go ahead and create that glow by the same thing. So you can add this, put it just right behind me. Let me just put it in front so that I know the sizes of it. You want to add this to the color. You want to add ID to the detail, you want to add, there's the color, select the kyber to the shape itself. So we have this one, right? And this one basically is image that I created, one with the glow and one without the glow, right? Which is the kind of like a transparent layer for the false. And then you can now just add this slightly bigger, right? And just shift this behind the background, right? And then now you can see that only the middle one has that little glow effect. So is this just adding additional furnishing to the kyber crystal, right? And then you can disable, the selection of the background and the glow so that only the middle one gets selected. Or you can even add an additional transparent layer on it just so that you don't have that kind of clicking effect over here. But yeah, that's how we created the scrolling animation for the kyber crystal. Now for the lightsaber, it is also using the same technique, slightly different. So same thing, we have the dummy, and then I have a lightsaber map layer. And this is basically a very simple thing. All right. 0 for the for the x-axis, because everything just sits in one place. So if you look at this one, the lightsaber doesn't move on the x-axis, but it moves on the y-axis. So it's the same thing with the kyber crystal, it's just that it's flipped. So if we click on, let's say, the purple one, you can see that it moves on the y-axis, but it stays the same on the x-axis, right? So this is why we have 0 here for the x-axis. For the y-axis, we're using 2 points from the data identification. So if it's 1, then I plot it at 0, which is the middle point. And then if it's 2, then I point it, I have an additional check to see if that's the one that the user has selected. All right, so if the selector is equals to the same lightsaber, then I put it as 1, right, which would grow it upwards. If not, I'll set it at -2, which will push the lightsaber down to the negative range. Else, I'll put it at 2, right? And if you think about this, we can set this over here. You have a couple of points here. Let me set this to this one. I change this to a line, and then the path, right? You can see that everything now stacks on top of one another. But what we could do is that we can do this, right? Just so you can see how it works in, okay. And then I have the lightsaber. Let me just add the colors so you can see. Just change the size a little bit, right? So now if we change, you can see that you just change the animation speed so you can also have a feel of it, right? So if you change, you can see that only the one only the one that's selected gets rendered upwards from 0 to 1. The rest are rendered from 0 to -2. You can probably do -1, but I did a longer one so that I can have a bit more. So when I stretch, I have a bit more space. So it's just playing around the settings a little bit. But this is essentially how you do. And then what from here, if you take away this one, you can see that there's only one that shows up, right? And for how it shows up here, this is an image of the lightsaber that I've kind of created. Let me see if I can show this here. I have the working file. From my graveyard. So this is kind of one of my place where I keep all my ideas. And this is how I've done it. So I've created the lightsaber in like the different components and stuff like that so that I can kind of break them apart and overlay them on top of each other in the viz itself. And then, so you can imagine that the lightsaber image basically just overlays on top of here, all right, so that you don't see this endpoint, right, over here, right? So it's kind of hidden because of the overlay. So how do we create the glow effect then? Right. So the glow effect, similarly, what we will do is you have this as the core, for example. Right. We don't need the colors for the core. So all of this will be white. Right. So let me just set this. You know what? Let me just show you guys using this one so it's easier to see. All right. And then you duplicate this. Sorry. One more thing we need to do is to create just a dummy value of max 1 for the size itself. Why I do this is I'll show you in a bit a nifty trick. So you can actually drag this over to size. All right. The one thing about Tableau is that if you use a measure for multiple things, if you change the size for one of the measure, it changes for all. But I needed the lightsaber's glow to be progressively larger as you go. So I can't use the same measure value. You could probably create like 5 different same measures with the same value, but it just clogs up your entire file. So what I like to do is that once you have one of these measures, calculated field, you can double click on it on this quick edit. You do a double slash, and this is just like just type a core. You hit Shift Enter on your keyboard, and if you hit up and down, you can see that now there's actually 2 different lines. You have the first line as the core, which is the labeling of the measures, and then the second line as the lightsaber calculated field. And it's actually the same thing, right? And then now I can actually set this to a certain size. So you can see that there's this. Let me just change the color so you can see it. Right, so this is let me just play around the size a little bit so that it's not so big for the core. Right, there we go. And I change this back to white. Right, and then the next thing is I add the first glow layer. Right, so this will be your glow 1. I'll add the details. I'll add the colors. Change this to a line. Change this to a path. Right, you can see that this starts to appear. And then I'll set this to the size itself, right? And then now, if I put this at the back of that, I can change the size of it, right? So let me just go back a little bit. If I put this to the same size, you can see that now it reads it at the same value. So if I change the size for this, it changes for both, which is why I needed to do that trick. So how you would do that trick is you have this one. You go over here, you do the same thing. Double click on it, do a / and just name it as glow 1, Shift Enter. Right, this recognizes it as a different measure. So you can go ahead and kind of resize this a little bit. So this is the first layer of glow. And then I will go ahead and add more layers to it. So this will be your second layer of glow. Right, I do this one on the ID, the colors, and then change it to a line, path, and the size. Right, and then I change this to glow 2. Oops, glow 2, Shift Enter. All right, put this to the bottom of this one. Shift this slightly bigger. Right. And then for this one, you want to reduce the opacity a little bit. Let's say, 70 or 80, maybe 50, I guess. Okay. So 50, you can see that the glow starts to happen a little bit. Maybe I can do slightly lower and put this up a little bit better. Okay. And then you can go ahead and create a third glow. Same thing, line, path, ID, color, size, and then you change this to glow 3. You can repeat this process as much as you like, but essentially what this does is it helps you to create that effect. And then you can just shift this. And there you have it, the glow of the lightsaber. Let me just take this off. if I set this to a black background so you can see a little bit better how the glow happens. Then take away the grid lines. Right. Yep. But basically, this is how you would do it. You can set the axis just so you can have this 0. Right? And then this works better like your lightsaber. Yep. But yeah, that is what I have for you guys. The last slide I would give you guys would be this one. Right. So this is kind of your cheat sheet. And like I said, start off by creating a dummy geospatial point, make 0.0, and then you add a second geospatial point. Then you can disable the background map. And then after that, it's basically free for all. What you need to do is you need to normalize your values, add more stuff using make point, make line, and just repeat as much as you like. But yeah, that is what I have for you guys today. Any questions?
Jacob had a question. He can read it out.
Thanks. That was cute. I can't remember if I saw someone already tested this. How many layers is the maximum number that Tableau will support in any one worksheet?
I've seen 20 over. I don't know what's the upper limit is, but yeah. I suppose it's all about how you manage it. You could go up to 50, but how well do you remember what each of the layer does?
Yeah, I think I saw that question about 6 months ago, and they went, we haven't defined an upper limit. It's just where you actually get to the point where you can't manage it anymore yourself. And Sam's comment as well. Yes, this is Secrets of the Viz turned around on Lewis himself to unpack Secrets of the Viz.
That's actually quite true.
And I was waiting for you because Secrets of the Viz from, I don't know, maybe about 6 months ago. So thank you for turning it into a podcast. I can now listen to it properly, like an audio podcast. But someone you had on, which might have been Rob or someone else, said the trick to the map layers that he had was instead of lat and long, press Control W and make it long and lat, and it gets rid of the map straight away, but everything still works. And I still haven't tried it. I don't know if it works that properly or not, but I was sort of, in a way, I was waiting for you to do that, and you didn't do it. And again, that's cool because there's just so many other hacks in there that was great to just go through that and know how to build those things as well.
No, I have to try that out.
Yeah. I haven't done a map layer yet, but no, it was good that that's what he said. It just, in Tableau Desktop, press Control W, and it just flicks rows and columns. And then the map disappears. But you've got to, I think even Heather said, or someone in the chat, everything else changes. So your X is now your Y, and your Y is now your X. You've got to flip every calculation as well. It might work. I don't know. Any other questions at all? Almost everyone is a presenter, so if you want to unmute and ask a question. If not, we'll move on. That'll be fine.
How do you come up with these ideas, Lewis? I mean, are you just an idea factory somehow just pops into your head, or is it watching a movie or cruising around the web?
The funny thing is the Minion Viz was the idea came when I went to Universal Studios with my kids. And they were walking around and seeing all the mascots and like, that's Kevin, that's Stuart, that's Dave. I was like, how do you know all their names? So I went to Google, and apparently there's 200 over named minions in the franchise, which is quite a lot, and nobody knew. So I have a curious mind in nature. So whenever I come across something that I feel it's unique, I'll go down a rabbit hole and just research and see if there's anything worth telling. That's one. The one about the YouTube video was also because my kids have been, it's a daily song playlist in my household. They would have to listen to APT every single day, and it annoys me to the max. I mean, the song is great, don't get me wrong, but it's just there's only so many times you can hear a song before it turns on you. And I think I've reached that limit. Previously, it was Baby Shark, and this is becoming the next Baby Shark for me. So I was like, is it really that popular among everyone? So like I said, it's basically just a curious mind that gave me my ideas. The Star Wars one was a bit different because I just wanted to do something to celebrate Star Wars Day. And it's been sitting on my... I mean, I've been thinking about doing something for the past 2 years. So...
I think Heather just left, but there's a plug in there that I'll leave for Heather. But good idea. Awesome. If you need to contact Lewis and you don't know how to do it already, there's a whole heap of ways, different ways to do it. I think you even had it added in a link tree there as well. But
yeah,
LinkedIn, X, Blue Sky, etc. Pretty easy to find.
I try to be everywhere for everyone, but yeah.
That's good. I almost read out of Rose there, and I didn't even think about other things as well, so that's fine. Okay, no other... Oh, there's another chat. Hang on, I've got to read what this other chat is. Okay, it's just another thank you. There was tons of thank you. Okay, so Fast 5. Quick questions with quick answers. You're supposed to answer the questions really quickly. It's just whatever pops into your mind first. No previews for these questions, but I think you know one of them coming up anyway, so that's good. So, first question. What's your go-to font choice for dashboard text?
Dashboard text. I would say Trebuchet, just because it looks a bit more condensed, especially for titles, I would say. But I think for body text, it's probably still Tableau font. Because I try not to venture out of it just because people's computers or my audience or my users might not have the font installed on their PC. So just for accessibility issues.
Yep, definitely. And what's your biggest aha moment while learning Tableau?
I would say map layers, just so because of today's topic, and also it changed the way how I look at Tableau, because it was previously, you need to have good rows and data in your data sets, but now like with map layers, you can essentially think of Tableau as a drawing canvas to draw anything, as long as you can kind of think of where to plot the points.
Yep, definitely. And what's the most dramatic thing you've ever said to a floating container?
Stay in line.
Yep, for sure. And if you could ban a chart type from ever being used again, what would it be?
Well, this is a tough one. Wow, I never really thought about this. I would say overlapping area charts, just so because if you have too many dimensions, like now it really points out, like you have the outliers just taking over everything else.
Yep, cool. And what's your favorite go-to hack, courtesy of Fee of DubDubData?
So my favorite will probably be that /Shift-Enter thingy to assign a temporary alias to the measure names, because that works wonders for everything. And that is actually from Therese and I can't remember the lady's name when they did that section in Tableau conference.
Mm-hmm. It sort of feels like it's like a Lisa Trescott hack, but not quite. When she drags them over to the data pane and it creates them, and it sort of does the same thing as the comment makes it something else that it's not before.
Definitely.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So in complete contradiction to this, in 3 days' time, we have Steve Wood talking about how to avoid using Tableau tricks and hacks. Jacob just commented a few minutes ago, it's ironic that we've got Lewis with just hacks on hacks on hacks, and then Steve is the repeat of his talk at Visit a few weeks ago, still 4 weeks ago, about how to avoid doing tricks in Tableau and other things. So again, there's the time zones, or there's the times. It's the same meeting, it's just in different places around the world. Use the QR code to register, or go back onto the Tableau user group site and register through there. And there's a lot of other upcoming meetings over the next few weeks. So this recording and a whole heap of other tugs, including Singapore Tug, etc., are on the YouTube channel at Team DataFam. Everything is also on the Spotify and the Apple podcast, so you can listen to them as well as you're going around if you can't watch YouTube. The same as Lewis's Secrets of the Viz, which I listen to quite regularly because it's a nice little 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. It's quite good. And if anyone wants to present on here, or if they've got any further questions, email me at team.datafam@gmail.com. But thank you, Lewis. I think everyone was sort of getting their minds blown at different points about all those different little tips that were embedded into doing map layers at the same time. I'm always amazed at the amount of trigonometry that's now in Tableau. One of those things, if you never use trigonometry when you leave school, and it hasn't been a part of Tableau for a while, it's always been there, no one's ever used it. And now when you get to map layers, it's really pushing in that you need to know how to do the boilerplates for the calculations, and then everything works from there. But there, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think everyone's a presenter, so if you want to unmute, just go for it.
Yeah, that was awesome, Lewis. I just loved it. It was just that your solutions are so elegant, but you also your demos so fast. Like you know that back to front. I was like, that is amazing. Like your demo skills are off the chart. So
I might have picked up some tips from the IMViz winners on how to do things in 20 minutes.
Very cool. It's an insight into your brain. I'm like, oh wow, okay. But that's like honestly, all the free vizzes are amazing, and the way you broke it down and showed us the maths behind it, beautiful.
Thank you.
Just loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It'd be scary to measure the amount of hours that you've just spent like trying to figure out how it works to then make it look so simple.
The Star Wars Viz took me forever, and I think Heather was one of the initial version that I published on like May the 4th didn't have that animation of the lightsaber, only had that sliding animation. And for the longest time I couldn't get the animation for the lightsaber to work. And I gave up on that. And then Heather was like, don't give up on it. Like have another go at it. I'm sure you can make something work. So I like took another look at it. I was like, what if I do this versus this? And yeah, apparently it worked after hours of experimentation.
And now that we know the trick, it feels, I wouldn't want to say too easy, but like, thank you for doing all
it
the
feels
forward
easy,
part.
right? But it took me so long to get that right.
There's so many nice little things in there as well, Lewis, like in terms of when you drew that line for the lightsaber, making it kind of go down to -2 so that you had a timing delay of when one went down and the other one was drawing and it took longer to get there. So it came up after the other one had gone down rather than happening at the same time. Just so many little kind of things that, just make the difference in terms of the aesthetics. Really nice.
Yeah, that was something I missed out. Like having the 1 and the 2, because if you have it like -1 and 1, you would see them overlap right in the middle. So the -2 makes the downwards faster than the upwards.
I spotted it, mate. I got it.
Okay. Good on you.
I feel like early on, the Japanese DataFam were really pushing. They were coming out with some crazy animation stuff, kind of seemingly out of nowhere, and that's where those tricks are kind of you'll find them. They've already thought of them.
But it is just right at the start. It's an X and Y canvas, and you've just got to put the right mark in the right place at the right time, and it's easy, right? It's just how many hours of figuring out the maths of how to actually make it work to put it all together, so it just looks so slick in a 5-second animation.
Graph paper helps.
Graph paper helps.
I work in a gridded notebook. That really does help.
Yeah.
That's so true. But then when our kids say, oh, I won't ever need this maths outside of school, you can go, no, watch this. Go blow your mind.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, that's about it. If no one else has got anything to say, then thank you again for your time, Lewis. Awesome.
Thank you,
This will be up
everyone.
later on.
Nice session.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Right, and bye.
Okay,
Thanks,
thanks a lot.
Lewis.
Talk
Thanks
to you soon.
again, Chris, for running
Okay.
this.
Not a
Yeah.
problem at all. Thank you for coming. Okay, see you.
Absolutely.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.